Brahms' moving fidelity. Johannes Brahms, 1833 to 97, was 23 years younger than Robert Schumann and 14 years younger than Clara Schumann. It was Schumann who discovered him and brought him out into the open to the musical attention of the world, and he was like a son to him, and soon was like one of the family, and Clara Schumann loved him. When the crisis of her husband came, Brahms was the one to help her out through the most difficult time of her life, alone with 7 children, with a constant strain as concert pianist, obliged to all alone support her 7 children, and her gratitude to Brahms was always infinite. The letters of those years of Schumann's hospitalization between Clara Schumann and Johannes Brahms were by agreement later on destroyed by them, most probably to have no word remaining that could possibly inflict on Robert Schumann's reputation. She did never leave her widowhood, and Brahms remained a bachelor throughout his life, in constant loyalty to her. And when she died, an honoured lady and musician, greatest and most serious of all pianists at the time, 40 years after her husband, her most loyal friend, Johannes Brahms, died only 6 months afterwards, although he was so much younger. He had indeed tried to engage himself with other women, even on her own recommendation, but found never anyone like her, the wife of his best friend and mentor, who became in fact his only friend for life. The inevitable indispensability of love. You never are yourself enough. It is inevitable that if you are left all by yourself, you must explode, since no one can contain himself indefinitely without love. You have to be at least 2 persons to make love, and without making love you can't make life, so life cannot exist. So there you are. Make love or die. The greatest love story in music, Vincenzo Bellini, 1801 to 35, from Catania in Sicily. This is perhaps the most extreme of love stories in music. He adored her from the start. She was his only love, the sparkling Maddalena Fumaroli of a noble family, of the establishment in high society, while he was born a natural musician, of an honest family of able music craftsmen, organists and pianists, conductors, singers, fiddlers, ordinary talented and hard-working musicians, of no good standing in society, of course, no wealth, no ancestry, no property, just music. So the family of Maddalena would not hear of it, and they forbade Vincenzo's visiting his love. But he would not give up and formally proposed to her. Of course, it was rejected by her family, but he promised her to always remain faithful and have no more love beside her except music. His career became a formidable and exceptional success. His operas were universally adored and loved, and at the age of 32 he conquered Paris with his opera The Puritans, his ultimate success. At that point he was told the fatal news that Maddalena Fumaroli suddenly had died. He could not bear it. He refused to go on living as before. He retreated into isolation, would not eat, would not see a doctor, and when finally a doctor had access to him, it was too late, and he died on exactly the same day as his beloved Maddalena, 1 year after her. He was not ill. The doctors could not understand his death, while every poet, artist and musician knew the truth. He died of love. One of his best friends was Chopin, who understood him best, perhaps, and on his dying bed would only listen to the music of Bellini, and his last wish was to share the grave of Vincenzo Bellini. Black Roses, a translation of a Swedish poem by the artist Ernst Josefsson, 1851 to 1906. Why are you so melancholy, you that always were so happy? I cannot be merry any more, for sorrow has brought me black roses. There is in my brain a tree of roses growing that will never leave me any peace, and there is a thorn by every stem which constantly brings me much pain and ire, since my sorrow brings me all black roses. But there is a treasure out of roses, white as death and red as blood, that keeps on growing into me, so that I certainly will perish, since they keep on fretting at my heart to fill it up and overwhelm it with a plague of sorrows of black roses. The Black Spider of History, translation of a symbolistic Swedish poem by Adolf Pohl, 1863 to 1943, a German-Swedish-Finnish poet and friend of Sibelius. Beyond the forest, where life is so green and the sun shines so brightly, a spider sits snugly so black and so huge in the grass, watching out for its prey. He catches the sunlight and weaves of its rays a web of invisible darkness, so strong and so light, to be able to catch any soul coming by, to torment it and squeeze it to death. And the sun fades and light is defeated, to go out and vanish, engulfed in the night, people wandering randomly, going astray, searching vainly, pathetically for their souls, which they lost on the way. But they still keep on going, believing that night is as light as the day, and get frightened when dawn is returning, and hide to protect their delusions and dreams of the freedom they lost and believe they have found in their escapist substitute make-believes. But the spider keeps weaving in anger so stern, well aware that a true soul can never get caught, but must wander through history, timeless, serene, always harassed by power authorities pulling him down, by the might of brute force, violation and blood, and they all fight against that invisible web of the obstinate spider of fate, of relentlessness, which will eventually bring every single authority down. Complaints. All that's wrong with you is that you are too beautiful, so everyone must love you, and too much. And all that's wrong with our relationship is that we do not meet enough, but have to starve between our meetings, since all time that we are not together is a wasted time of thirst and hunger, and what's worse, of dying desolation, of desertion. All that's wrong with our lives is that we do not live together, but are kept apart as punishment for nothing. All that we can do about it is to have these unacceptable conditions rectified, which they inevitably must be, since they couldn't get much worse. So there we are back where we started, at the task of making something good out of a most impossible situation. Was it a dream? Translation of a poem by the Finnish poet Josef Julius Wecksell, Swedish, 1838 to 1907, who far too early lost himself in schizophrenia, 1862, with the production of his only play, the dramatic masterpiece Daniel Hjort. Was it just a dream that I was once your heart's beloved? I remember it most like a silenced song, the string of which is trembling still. I remember that you offered me a briar rose of shy and tender aspect, and a glistening silver tear of a farewell, and was it all a dream? a dream like the short life of an anemone, of the green spring field of a moment hastily to sparkle, just to wither, and immediately to be replaced and disappear in vulgar crowds of others. But methinks I oftentimes at night hear one voice crying bitterly in floods of never-ending tears, and that's the memory to hide and keep in safety deep within your breast, for that one was your finest dream. The Diamond in the Snow, translation of another poem by Josef Julius Wecksell. On the blinding snowdrifts there is a diamond glistening serenely. There never was a tear, a pearl of higher sparkling lustre. Her brilliance, like of heaven, comes from deep and secret longing, as she casts her glance towards the sun when it comes rising in full glory. As that warming beam strikes at the snow, the diamond starts melting in her adoration, kissing the light sunbeams in her fondest love to gradually dissolve in tears. O gracious fate to love the highest beauty life can offer, and to sparkle in the blinding glory of the sun, to die in the fulfillment of her loveliest moment. The Song of the Heart, just another Wecksell translation. He wrote 215 poems in his brief period of activity, mainly as a youth like Rimbaud. The heart knows not of peace and dares not hold a faith. It only beats in constant worry, and whoever understood its sighs. Bright eyes of blue, why must you sparkle so? And heavenly charming smile, why must you outshine heaven? You took my peace away. The heart is robbed of all its faith. It only knows for sure one thing, the durability of love in all eternity. I dream, but all my dreams are battles. Waking up, there is no peace. I break with all my heart and cannot die, and burn in ice and snow. My hope is thwarted constantly. My doubts are like a joke, and I am only calmed to feel my heart run wild again. And standing by my grave and falling down, I would still burn and fight with sword and helmet against all the world for you. And if I were the god of all the stars, I would still have you as my bride. And if I only were a beggar, I would beg from no one else but you. The Drop of Spring, the last of my Wecksell translations for the time being. In the spring of dawn, by happy warblings of the larks, there was a resting on a cloud, a tear brought out in shyness, bathing in the sunlight. There was triumphant universal joy, which brought the tear some inspiration, filling him with coy desire and the courage to express a wish. Give also me some life, so that I may dare try to live. An angel's hand observed the prayer, touched the cloud, and let the tear out, falling down to earth, where for a while it mirrored the divine world full of wonders, heavens full of sparkling gold, and earth all emerald of growth and greenth. And so fell down and ended up into the sea, where it was safely hidden. No one asked you for your name, and no one saw you here. Enlightenment, the controversial course of history, has never been more difficult to follow. Civilization going down the drain, bogged down in drug abuse, exaggerated medication, as the universal cure which only is an excuse for abuse and an illusion, turning humankind to zombies, dumbed, reduced to passive zeros, so as to be handled with less difficulty by establishment authorities, the only ones to gain from common idiocy and ignorance. What shall we do, the happy few, so isolated in our exile from this world mess, being quite alone in seeing through it all, and kept at bay by the establishment authorities, in poverty and isolation far away, not to disturb the peace of idiocy and ignorance, and happiness of the established course to hell. We can point out that we exist, and that is about all that we can do. The worst thing we could do is nothing, and the knack we have and power of the word compels us never to fall silent, but to constantly keep up the urge and the necessity to evermore insist on more enlightenment. Old love never rusts. Old love never rusts and never changes, but grows with the years not only in maturity, but most of all in durability, so that it almost seems quite natural that it not only must remain for always, but is also just another chapter of the past, as if it never really had any beginning, or, if it had, it was long since forgotten, far away in the eternity of timeless past, which means that love at present is but a parenthesis, an interlude, the tiniest link of an interminable chain just linking two eternities together, one of the past and another of the future. Naturally, we tend to emphasize the present, dramatize it and exaggerate it, and there is no harm done, for as long as we keep in perspective and keep well in view the past eternal and connected to the everlasting future. The tutor's advice from a play. Take good care of these your priceless younger years, and be aware that there is no more positive insurance of a good and honourable life than careful education. History consists of knowledge, knowledge is but wisdom, wisdom is the end result and aim of every kind of education, and that's why all history is the consummate knowledge, being simply human realistic facts in perfect concentration and in limitless abundance. The lightness of light and the light of lightness. The soft touch of ideal creativity must be as light itself, and hardly even touching, never pressing, beating or enforcing, but just letting it come true, alighting from all heaviness, in constantly increasing speed of thought and new inventions, carried down from universal influence to settle down in lasting works of art. The touch is all, and hardly more than just a touch, enough to make a contact, just enough to make a current and electrify the process of creation, like the god of Michelangelo's creating Adam. Creativity is just a hint materialized, the faintest touch of lightness, light as light. The gathering storm, let it sweep us with it, up along the drifting clouds, in furious chase of the infinity, of glorious flight to nowhere except Never Neverland and beyond. We don't even have to fasten seat belts. Hurricanes and storms will pay our tickets to the moon and planets and beyond, and let us comfortably sit upon the wings of fortune, dreamland, and angelic music, making us untouchable to mortal petty things, while elves and angels are our only proper company to take us seriously among the clouds, in that alternative and only truthful world of beauty, joy, and parties going on forever. Welcome anyone who cares to join us on our everlasting trip to love. Words are not enough. Words cannot express our love, and love itself is not enough expression. for the feelings that encompass all the world we live in of ourselves and that celestial harmony that emanates from our reunion. We can never separate again, but must remain one unity together in unbreakable fulfillment, never more to be disturbed in this extra-dimensional and perfect harmony, creating peace enough, convincing, stable, and magnificent to outlast all the universe. Down the drain, John Keats, for example. There are certain lovers who just can't get through but keep adoring in their bitterness, whom they could never reach, and who kept constantly betraying them, while he, the miserable lover, just kept on his faithfulness in bitter spiritual sadomasochism, as if to wallow in self-torture of the most alarming, unendurable, accelerating kind. Of course it must end badly, and eventually his love will petter out and disappear like all filth down the drain, to finally get lost, mixed up in sewers, and at last find outlet and release into the ocean like a water drop or wave of no more consequence. Thus was John Keats' name writ in water, after hapless love and poetry much criticized, and he was not alone. They always come again, the faithful lovers that get lost in their fidelity, betrayed and beaten down by critics without understanding and by human baseness, and they always keep on loving, ending up with their refuted love, their dreams and positiveness altered into bitterness, forever flowing like a never-ending swan song down the drain. The only time that lasts is outside time, a philosophical truism. The only truthfulness is timelessness. The only zone of durability is out of here. The only perfect love is without time, and there is no reliability but in that nowhere outside time, in the transcendency of temporariness, in all that is not touched by the mortality of mundaneness. Then there is nothing, you would say. No, you are wrong. The now is all deceit and foolery. The whims of fashion are the mirages of falsity and self-deceit and desillusion. It is all a fraud, while only dreams that go beyond continue living, striving forward and surviving, constantly outliving all the vanity of passing lies. And those that stick to dreams, preferring them to the illusions of reality, will see them triumph with all life to vanquish all mortality. Morbidity. Drifting like a zombie, everything amiss, coughing like a horse, economy in constant crisis, hanging over you like doom, and frozen shoulders, SMS thumbs, mouse arm, eyesight fading, with a broken back and swollen feet, and constant headaches, like as if someone nailed your head with spikes in constant drumming, appetite gone missing, all food nauseating, all you eat is crap, and boozing makes it worse. Let's not discuss the shit. Your stinking breath is quite enough. The ulcers bleeding, fuming and erupting. What else do you need? The only thing still missing is a downright suicide, but dying is the very last thing I will do. Morbiditet. Driver omkring som en zombie, allting är åt helvete, ekonomin en evig kris. Som ett damoklessvärd som måste falla, frusna skuldror, dubbelmusarm, tummar brutna, stelnade och kroknade av SMS. Med synen ständigt mera dimmig, kroniskt ryggskott, svullna fötter, en migrän som aldrig tröttnar, som om någon ständigt slog in spikar i ditt huvud i ett evigt hamrande. Aptiten väck för länge sedan, då all mat smakar äckligt, medan superiet bara gör det värre. Låt oss inte diskutera skiten. Munnens stank är alldeles tillräckligt genom magsårs blödande och ångande gifteruptioner. Vad kan du då mer begära? Allt som fattas är ett regelmässigt självmord, men att dö blir dock det sista som jag gör. The exile. You are lucky to be constantly refused, not having to take part in the establishment, the mob that's only good for beating down each talent that is something extra, sticking out as something not quite ordinary. Better then to be completely powerless and innocent and pure without a name, or have a name but only writ in water, known but to the ocean of eternity as only one of all the passing water drops, where all things temporal, established and mundane are bound to disappear with all things base and vulgar, written just for greed or vanity, of even less use than some toilet paper. You are only here to vanish anyway. You might as well be exiled then from the beginning, lost and disappeared, forgotten and ignored, and be content with eternal natural outsidership, of nothing more than just a drop of water in the ocean. Exilpoet. Var lycklig du som blott blir refuserad och som slipper bli en del av etablissemanget, denna maffia över strecket som är bara till för att slå ner en var som vågar vara något extra. Bättre då att vara oskyldig och ren och utan makt och ha sitt namn förträngt och skrivet blott i vatten, okänt utom blott för evighetens hav, där allt förgängligt, etablerat, grymt och temporärt försvinner med allt ytligt, småaktigt, vulgärt och billigt skräp som skrivs för pengar, äregirighet och fåfänga, alltså med ens är värt den lilla nytta som man ändå får ut av ett WC-papper. Man ska ju ändå försvinna, lika gott att från början vara helt förlorad, uppgiven, försvunnen, glömd och refuserad till förbannelse och nöja sig med den naturliga och eviga exilen som är mer än blott en flyktig vattendroppe i ett hav. The highlight of love. The summit moment of my love was my life's shortest moment, but enough still for a lifetime and enough rich for eternity. So how could I forget it ever? Let me stay there deep inside you, hidden in the richness of your hair, that never was more long and beautiful, in sumptuous generosity and warmest colour, never to get out of you, but dwell forever as your guest, at your perpetual party, never tiring, constantly improving, in a mood of sweetest atmospheric music that must never end, but, like all music, should exist just to play on. Embrace me still and keep me in your heart, like I will never forego you, but keep you cherished in my warmth of soul, to never let you go, and thus all separation must remain quite naturally most impossible, and let us be content with that, and simply stay in love forever. The bleakness of the lost identity, the problem of being ashamed of the human race. How is it possible to live aware that you as human being are one of that kind that utterly has devastated the whole planet, killing more than half of all the planet's life, and being most of all a predator and monster, killer of his own kind? We learn that we should never have exceeded 500 million members, not to threaten life's stability on Earth, and yet we are 12 times that number and continue ruthlessly to multiply. How can you stay alive with such a knowledge, being totally ashamed of what you represent and feeling constantly more lousy as a parasite, partaking in the ruining of nature, all that's beautiful and free and virgin? Without idealism you cannot live. Idealism is love and faith and hope in man, but the political reality has ruined everything, and all that you can do is stick to individuals, the beauty of outsiders and exceptions, who in some ways have maintained their freedom and integrity. And then, of course, you always have the bottle and all kinds of other things to fool your flesh with, into thinking you can actually feel better, temporarily at least. Demonic love. They say you can't be lovers being stuck together in the clinch of a relationship and at the same time be good friends, that friendship starts as obligations end and sexual struggle is disposed of. I disbelieve it. Friendship makes the sexual relationship endure, while it cannot endure without friendship. That's the basis on which all relationships are built, and they should all be lasting, whether sexual or not. Let tempests hammer down your life to pieces. Let the storms rage on with all the tragedies. Let virtue suffer, and let tears gush forth in overwhelming rivers of adversities. But if your love is based on friendship, it will last and outlast all defeats and trials, and there is no love at all without it, since there is no friendship without love. Age. The more maturity advances, the less matters age, and years grow insignificant as timelessness takes over, and your youth becomes perpetual in mind as childish sensitivity grows more acute, and you feel as if you had been alive forever and can't stop living for that reason, constantly renewing all your love as those you love increase in number with your social life's perpetual expansion. What has age to do with that? Nothing at all. So just forget your age and keep on living, and above all, keep on loving, and you will stay alive for ages still and outlive your own age. Never look back. You learn from your experience, but what you learn should only serve your future. Therefore, to look back and linger there will only hold you back and slow you down. There is no greater harm, for instance, to a work of art than overworking it, to go on working on it when it's finished, which will just detract from its completeness. Memories of old are good to dwell on, but they never can replace the present moment in its crucially decisive shaping of the future. When an old man proves his dotage going gaga, he will only have his memories to live on, but they cannot help him if he fails in living now and going on creating life and future. There is no excuse for letting go or stepping down. Life will not stop for your sake if you want to stop it.